you have a research question, and now you need to answer this question. You need to do research. And the first step of research is finding sources. So what is a source? A source is something like a book, academic journal, magazine, newspaper, blog. It could be a video, it could be a lecture, it could be a podcast. Something that you can get information from to help answer your question. Not all sources are created equal. Just because someone said it, or wrote a book about it, or wrote a newspaper article about it, or did a video about it, doesn't mean it's useful. Therefore, we need to evaluate our sources. The first thing we can evaluate is how current a source is. In other words, how new the source is. Generally speaking, newer is better. Another way we can evaluate a source is to look at its depth, how deep it is, how in detail it gets into a certain topic. A third way to look at a source is to think about how factual it is. Is it primarily concerned with facts, or does it have a lot of opinion in it? Now, opinion is not a bad thing. Philosophy, social science, politics is full of opinion. But if your research question is looking for fact, you don't want someone's personal opinion. Another thing to consider is how reliable or accurate a source is. Is the information you're getting trustworthy? Do you trust it? So, let's think about evaluating the most traditional type of source in academic research: books. So, take, for example, Edward Gibbon's famous book, The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. Now, let us ask, is this book current? Well, you can see here it was published in 2005. But in fact, if you check inside and see when the book was first published, you will see it was in fact published in 1776. So, this book is not current. However, it is very reliable. Roman historians to this day still use this book because the research that went into this book was excellent. How about this book? Clearly, it's a very deep book. It's more than 400 pages. But if we look, we can see actually it was published in 1975. That's not very current. And in a book on Russian history, which this happens to be, there are a lot of more current works of Russian history. However, I can tell you that this happens to still be a highly relevant source because no one has yet published a better work on this topic. So even though it was published in 1975, it's still highly relevant. What about this book? This book is actually very current. It was published in 2009. However, there's a couple problems with this book. First of all, it's not particularly deep. It's probably factual, it's probably reliable. But the question is it still useful? Is it still relevant? Now, if you can see, it's about developing applications for the iPhone. Now, I don't know if this book is still useful, but in 2016, considering how much development there's been with the iPhone since 2009, this book might not be relevant anymore. It's current, it's probably reliable, it's probably factual, it's unlikely to be full of the author's opinions, but it might not be that useful in 2016. So, let's think about these criteria with other sources. For example, academic articles. Now, I can pretty much guarantee to you that an academic article published in 2016 about iPhones is an excellent source. It'll be current, it'll be reliable, it'll be factual, and it'll probably still be pretty deep, even though it may only be an article of 20 to 40 pages. On the other hand, a newspaper article about iPhones, while very, very current, I mean, maybe it was published today, it's probably not going to be very deep. It's probably going to be factual, it's probably going to be pretty reliable, but it won't be deep. Magazine articles are somewhere in between academic articles and newspapers. They're more current than academic articles, but less current than newspaper articles. They're generally deeper than newspaper articles, but not as deep as an academic article. Finally, let's think of the internet. Now, just because something's on the internet doesn't mean it's not reliable. There are lots of very reliable things on the internet. In fact, these days, most magazine, newspaper, and academic articles are accessible on the internet. But moreover, there are also blogs, videos, lectures, all kinds of other media on the internet. Many of them are very reliable, and also, because it's on the internet, very current. But it's harder to tell what is reliable and accurate when dealing with the internet.